more moderate Republicans and a group of Democrats. Because if these extraneous policy items are going to be a must-have on the budget, a compromise will be very, very, very hard to come by. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Delaware.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise this afternoon to speak in support of the incredibly important legislation that's on the floor, the Small Business Innovation Research Program reauthorization, a bill S-493, which also reauthorizes the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. And I want to commend Senator Landrieu, the chair of the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, and her ranking minority member, Senator Snowe of Maine. Their leadership in moving this to the floor and in getting this considered is vital to making progress on this bipartisan bill. This is the third, Mr. President, in a series of bipartisan bills. We have taken up the first two, the FAA reauthorization, the second, the patent reform bill, have passed, and it is my real hope that all of us in this chamber will seriously consider supporting S-493. The 30 million small businesses in America are incubators of creativity and job creation. They drive our innovation sector and make us more competitive globally. In addition to employing over half our private sector workforce, small businesses are the backbones of our American communities and can be a source of economic advancement for millions of Americans in every state. The Small Business Innovation Research Program, or SBIR, sets aside a small part of the research and development budget from a number of federal agencies to be used as grants for small businesses. And the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, or STTR, helps scientists and innovators at research institutions take their discoveries and commercialize them through small business startups. Since their creation in 1982 and 1992, respectively, SBIR and STTR have invested more than $28 billion in helping American small business turn into big business through innovation and commercialization of cutting-edge products. The classic example, which a number of our colleagues, including Senator Landrieu, have highlighted in the conversation so far, is Qualcomm of San Diego, which began as a small business of just 35 employees and has now, in fact, grown to a company of 17,000. It pays more in taxes every year than the whole budget of the SBA. We can't lose sight that every large company in America at one point began as a small business. The SBIR and STTR programs were created through bipartisanship and should maintain wide support. In fact, SBIR was signed into law by former President Ronald Reagan. They more than pay for themselves and the jobs and economic growth they create and the taxes paid by these companies as they grow. For too long, the Senate has kicked the can down the road by passing temporary extensions month after month, year after year for these two vital programs. This week, at long last, we have the chance to pass real long-term reauthorization. It's a shame, I feel, we had to vote for cloture even just to begin debating this bill, which has wide bipartisan support. Ideology should not trump practical solutions that can put more Americans back to work and get our economy moving again. These two programs are proven vehicles for growth in all our states, including my home state of Delaware. In Delaware, where we have a strong and growing high-tech sector, small businesses have been benefiting from these two programs. And with your forbearance, Mr. President, I will for a moment just mention three. One Delaware company that received a critical SBIR grant was Elcraton. Elcraton started with 2 employees who invented and patented a process to take bacteria which turn algae into butanol for fuel. Imagine that. Think of the possibility of literally using pond scum to produce fuel for cars and trucks. Butanol is superior to ethanol in many respects because it's more compatible with the whole current petroleum infrastructure. This SBIR grant enabled this company to expand significantly, to grow their production, and to scale up not just the research and development, but their early-stage manufacturing. Another company, Compact Membrane Systems of Newport, Delaware, is putting a $1 million SBIR grant to work developing a hollow fiber filter that's used to filter hydraulic fluid from water. This extends the life of machinery like wind turbines that use hydraulic fluid or filter oil. They started with just 3 employees and now have 24. 5 of those hires were directly made possible through the SBIR grant. And last, in Newark, Delaware, ANP Technologies is using an SBIR grant to build biological agent detection systems for our American Department of Defense. The kit they're developing is rapid, lightweight, and life-saving for our troops and our first responders. This ANP grant recipient of an SBIR grant is just another example of a great application of cutting-edge technology by a small business that will have positive impacts for our first responders, our armed forces, and my home community of Newark, Delaware. Since 1983, over 400 Delaware businesses have received more than $100 million in SBIR grants. I know that every one of my colleagues here in the Senate has a similar positive story from his or her state. Each one of these businesses I just spoke about in Delaware could be the next Qualcomm. Any one of the small businesses in our states that receive grants through SBIR and support through STTR could generate a revolution in high-tech that spurs the creation of thousands of jobs. In my view, Mr. President, we cannot afford to let this critical job-creating program expire. According to one report, businesses backed by SBIR grants have been responsible for almost a quarter of our nation's most important innovations over the past decade, and they account for almost 40% of our nation's patents. The applications range from the military to medicine, from education to emergency services. Congress must have a smart approach to budget reform that balances budget cuts with strategic long-term investments that create growth and job creation for our communities. A great example of exactly what it is that the SBIR and STTR programs do. I hope all of our colleagues will join in supporting Chairwoman Landrieu, Senator Landrieu of Louisiana, in supporting this vital bill and the great work she and the committee have done to advance it to this date. And, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really sincerely appreciate the remarks of the senator from Connecticut and thank him for his support not only of this program but for his expertise and leadership in the whole area of small business innovation and technological advancements. He was quite a leader in his previous positions in Connecticut, and he brings a great deal of expertise here to the Senate. I know that the senator from Alaska is here on the floor to speak about an amendment that is pending for debate and consideration. We may have amendments that are called up for votes today that has not been finally decided, but we can come to the floor, of course, and offer amendments and debate several that are pending. One thing, though, that I want to say before I turn it over to Senator Murkowski is that I think Senator Coons really hit the nail on the head when he said a smart budget plan is going to work to meet the challenges of this extraordinary debt that we have that's been caused by for multiple reasons. It's important that we address that correctly and not just one-sided. And, Mr. President, what I want to say is this bill on the floor addresses a significant aspect of smart budgeting and debt reduction by creating jobs that generate revenues for governments at the local level that are looking for those revenues, at the state level that are desperate for those revenues, and at the federal level that could most certainly use some additional tax revenues so that we can maintain our leadership in strategic investments. So, you know, there are some on the floor this morning earlier and in the caucus or in the Congress and the Senate that want to say that the only way to get to a balanced budget is by slashing some of the important programs that help create the atmosphere here in America for business to thrive. Some of that would be strategic investments in infrastructure. Some of that would be strategic investments in education. Even the Business Roundtable would say the last budgets you should be cutting are effective job training and education programs, yet, according to the philosophy of some, those are the first programs that get slashed. That is not smart budgeting. That is not closing the budget gap. That is not putting your head to the problem. What Senator from Connecticut, though, said is that it's a combination of some strategic cutting in some discretionary budgets. We're going to have to pare down the defense budget appropriately and find some cuts and some savings. Even Secretary Gates acknowledges there's waste, fraud, and abuse in the defense bill. But most importantly, I think Democrats and Republicans are coming together today to say we can grow our way out by producing jobs, and this reauthorization bill is one of the bills that can actually do that. So, Mr. President, I just wanted to put a little exclamation point on that part, and I see the senator from Alaska here that is going to be expressing her views on one of the amendments that's pending. And then Senator Boxer is also here on the floor. Senator Lautenberg from New Jersey is here with us as well. And I think Senator Snowe may want to say just one word. Okay, Senator Snowe is here to offer an amendment, but why don't we turn to Senator Murkowski?
Mr. President, just a parliamentary.
With the senator from California.
Since we're going back and forth, I would like to be recognized when Senator Murkowski is through.
Is there objection? With that objection so ordered.
Mr. President.
Senator from Alaska.
Mr. President, thank you. And to the chairman of the Small Business Committee and the ranking member, thank you for your work on this legislation. Senator Landry, you've spoken about the necessity, particularly in this environment today as we're coming out of a recession, the need to ensure that we have that conducive environment for our small businesses to thrive. It's not just about incentives and opportunities. It really is that business environment. And one of the things that I think that is important for us as policymakers to look at is those things that are put in place that perhaps smother our businesses, whether it's through regulation or the cost or the permitting, but also those things that create uncertainty. And that is what I'd like to speak to for just a few minutes this afternoon. The minority leader has put forth an amendment just several hours ago that would put a stop to the EPA's command and control climate regulations. This is an amendment that I'm rising today to offer my support. This is not the first time I've had an opportunity to be here on the Senate floor and speak about my concern about the agency advancing policies ahead of the Congress, of the EPA advancing regulations that set climate policy, again, before the Congress had acted. We spent a considerable amount of time here last year discussing the pitfalls of EPA's massive and unprecedented expansion of regulatory powers as they sought to advance those regulations that would impose that uncertainty on our businesses. I remain as convinced now as I was when we had the arguments previous, when we were talking about this resolution of disapproval against the EPA. I remain as convinced as ever that EPA's effort to impose these backdoor climate regulations is the wrong way, and perhaps it's the worst way to address our nation's energy and climate challenges. Our country is struggling to recover from the worst economic downturn in our modern history. We talk daily about the needs for us as lawmakers to advance those policies that will help our nation, help to restore job growth in this country. All this is going on in the midst of global events that are clearly out of our control. We've got chaotic global events that have driven our energy prices to near two-year highs. The last thing in the world for us to do would be to allow unelected bureaucrats to impose new economic burdens on our families and on our businesses. In combination with these recent events overseas, the EPA's regulation of greenhouse gases is helping to contribute to increased energy prices. The proliferation, and the numbers are astounding in terms of what the EPA is advancing, in terms of these regulations that hit our businesses every day. The proliferation of EPA rulemakings on climate change is now creating pervasive uncertainty throughout our economy. It has stymied and delayed new investments in energy production. And this situation will only become worse once the temporary relief that is provided by the EPA's tailoring rule, once this is tossed out by the courts or perhaps ratcheted down by EPA's own timeline. But what's most troubling is that the EPA has consistently failed to consider what the economic impact of their rulemaking, what the impact is. We have asked repeatedly, and yet there is no response back from the EPA. It's kind of a shell game that we have seen moving forward. First, the EPA claimed, well, it's an endangerment finding, and that is simply a scientific finding. It's nothing more. There's not going to be any regulatory burdens that would be created as a result of it. And then we saw a deal struck between the automakers, the state of California, the environmentalists, and the EPA to tie emissions and their standards to already enacted mileage increases for light-duty vehicles. That move then triggered regulation of greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act for all emitters, including stationary sources. But here again, there was no economic analysis provided by the EPA. And the lack of this analysis or this assessment and the lack of information led many members of Congress, myself included, to repeatedly ask for a study of the potential impacts. But EPA has disregarded these requests. Finally, they published their tailing rule, which was not only finished without a real economic analysis, but it somewhat brazenly pitched as regulatory relief. They first said that this was not a burden that had been imposed, and then they come back and they say, well, now we're providing regulatory relief. Kind of an odd claim to have made. But what became clear throughout all of this is that the EPA wants us to believe that none of their actions have imposed new regulatory requirements, and therefore there's no cost. If we haven't added any regulatory burden, there's not going to be any subsequent cost. But this assertion simply denies logic. Their regulations require that expensive new permits be obtained, and to do that, you have expensive new technologies that have to be purchased, operated, and installed. And in the next few years, these requirements will become more severe, and more businesses will be folded in to face them. And to accept these economy-wide climate regulations with no substantive analysis of their economic impacts is really to take a huge gamble with an already fragile American economy. And this is a gamble that I believe, Mr. President, we should not take. And the amendment from the minority leader that was presented earlier today would ensure that we do not. As I mentioned, just starting off on my comments, I think it is fitting that this debate does take place on legislation that is designed to help our small businesses. It's true that because the EPA has decided that they're not going to regulate greenhouse gases under the Clean Air Act, but not according to it, they're not going to regulate the small businesses at this point in time. But soon, however, they're going to be caught up in the same net as their larger counterparts. And in the meantime, as the customers of the refiners and the power plants throughout the country are now regulated, our small businesses will inevitably face increased costs. Innovation should not mean having to find creative ways to comply with government regulations in order to keep your doors open. Now, fortunately, it's not too late to prevent this situation from becoming worse. The first round of regulations kicked in at the start of this year, and then the so-called new source performance standards for refineries and power plants, one of the next steps in the EPA's regulatory process. These aren't expected until later this year. We can and we should step in now to prevent this additional growth of the now sweeping regulatory burden from the EPA. If we don't act now, if we fail to act now, America's competitive position in the world will continue to deteriorate. And this should be cause for concern for all of us serving here in the Congress. But unfortunately, we've not only failed to put a stop to this agenda, but some have actually embraced it. Explanations are out there, I'm sure, but perhaps the most common is a misplaced hope that by forcing consumers to pay more for energy, that somehow or other this is going to usher in the green jobs to manufacture the wind turbines and other equipment that can just as easily be made overseas. It's this kind of thinking that brought us to where we were last year, the year before, with the tremendously unpopular cap-and-trade bill. For too many in this town, here in Washington, D.C., higher energy prices have been an explicit goal. The President, when the cap-and-trade proposal was being debated, very clearly stated, his words, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Secretary of Energy has said just a couple years ago, and his quote, somehow we've got to figure out how to boost the price of gasoline to the levels in Europe. Notably, I think those comments were made when gasoline was even more expensive than it is today. But every member of this chamber should know and recognize where EPA is going with these regulations now. They're the administration's Plan B, initially meant to force us here in Congress to pass cap and trade, and now a poor substitute for it. So I think the question that is worth asking is, if cap and trade couldn't pass for lack of support, why should we let these regulations replace them? If we wouldn't agree to a legislative program because it was too damaging, why would we let command and control regulations pressed into place through rulemakings be the answer instead? If we knew that these regulations are a bad idea whose time should not have come, why would we let American families and businesses suffer greater and greater consequences? Mr. President, in the midst of our economic recovery and high energy prices, we need to protect our small businesses, not expose them to new regulatory burdens. I think the Minority Leader's amendment would do just that. I'm hopeful that the Senate will have an opportunity to vote on it and pass it within the near future. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Senator from California.
Mr. President, I have the floor now to respond to some of the statements of my friend from Alaska, and also be able to enter into some colloquies about this very dangerous and radical amendment. But before I do that, without losing my right to the floor, I would yield for a moment to Senator Snowe to just lay down an amendment.
Without objection, the Senator from Maine.
Mr. President, I want to thank the Senator from California for yielding to me so that I could ask unanimous consent, Mr. President, to set aside the pending amendment.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, I rise to call up Amendment 193.
The clerk will report.
The Senator from Maine, Ms. Snowe, for herself and others, proposes an amendment numbered 193 at the end of Title V.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the reading be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I will address this amendment later. And I just would like to add that the Chair and Senator Coburn are both co-sponsors of this legislation, this amendment as well. And I thank the Senator from California.
Mr. President.
Senator from California.
And I thank my friend, and I'm happy she's got her amendment lined up so that we can get to that. I want to commend, first of all, the Senator from Louisiana for her measure that's before us. It's a very strong bill. It's a bill I support very strongly. And therefore, to say I was disappointed to see an unrelated amendment be offered is an understatement. But that's the way it is. And we're going to have to vote on this. And frankly, we've had votes similar to this before, and I feel comfortable and hopeful that we will defeat this amendment. And in about 5 minutes, I'm going to yield for a question to my friend from New Jersey. But before I do that, I want to make about 5 minutes' worth of remarks. The amendment that is first pending on this bill has been named by Senators McConnell and Inhofe the Energy Tax Prevention Act. Good title. The bill doesn't do one thing to lower the price of oil. Not one thing. We know what we can do right now to lower the price of oil. We know we should go after the speculators who are speculating on futures. We know we have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that the President is looking at, and every time we've
taken some oil out of that. It has had a salutary impact on the price of gas immediately. We know that we should increase our investment in alternative clean fuels. We know what we have to do. We have to work for more stability in the Middle East, and most of all, we've got to get off foreign oil. We cannot be hostage to what's going on in the world. This bill does nothing about it. It has a good title, but it has nothing to do with the price of oil. We know what we have to do something about that, and I hope that we will. Now, let me tell you what I would name this amendment. I would not name it what has been called the Energy Tax Prevention Act, because it doesn't do a thing about that. I would call it the Reliance on Foreign Oil Forever Act, because part of it says we can no longer look at fuel economy through the Clean Air Act and make gains on fuel economy. We all now have the opportunity to buy gas-efficient cars. How do you think that happened? It didn't happen without some leadership here. As a matter of fact, the Senator from Maine, Olympia Snowe, was very involved in that. My colleague, Senator Feinstein, we all worked on this, Senator Lautenberg. And we said we are going to have more fuel-efficient cars. Now, according to this, it's over. And no state can step out and pass tougher fuel economy standards. It's stopping our states from acting. That's number one. So I call it the Reliance on Foreign Oil Forever Act, because as long as we drive cars that do not do well on fuel economy, we'll be stopping at the gas pump. Mark my words. And how wonderful is it for me? I drive a hybrid car that I can go about 50 miles per gallon, Mr. President, and I can wave at that, gas station and say, I'm glad I don't have to stop here for a long time. Now, if you don't want to name the amendment the Reliance on Foreign Oil Forever Act, you can name it something else. The air pollution, the More Air Pollution for America's Act, the More Air Pollution for Americans Act, more air pollution. Now, we all ran for office and we all run for office. I never met one person who said, please go back there and get me more air pollution. Not one person ever said that. What they tell me is they know someone with asthma, they have asthma, their kid has asthma. So here's what happens here. This bill says forever the EPA can never, ever go after carbon pollution. Let me repeat that. This bill, despite the fact that the Clean Air Act specifically says that carbon pollution is covered, says no more. EPA can't go after it. It's going to keep it on. And there's going to be more air pollution for every American. That's what this bill promises that they want to pass. And I've got to tell you, my colleagues are playing scientist and they're playing doctor. They're deciding for us whether we should be exposed to pollution. And when we hear from my colleague, Senator Lautenberg, we're going to hear what it's like to have a grandchild with terrible asthma and to worry about it 24/7. So who are the real doctors and what are they saying? We got a letter in opposition to this terrible, terrible amendment from the American Lung Association. And I guarantee you, Mr. President, if you, even though you are an extremely persuasive person, if you went outside and just stopped people on the street and said, well, who's really more trustworthy about your health, the American Lung Association or a senator? I don't care what you say. They pick the American Lung Association. They oppose this. The American Public Health Association, the American Thoracic Society, the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, the Physicians for Social Responsibility and Trust for America's Health. They write us, and I ask unanimous consent to put this in the record. We, the undersigned, write to express our strong opposition to the McConnell Amendment known as the Energy Tax Prevention Act of 2011. We believe this legislation would block the Environmental Protection Agency from setting sensible safeguards to protect public health and the effects of air pollution.
Without objection.
So here's where we are. This is a terrible amendment. It's going to keep us reliant on foreign oil. It's going to overturn the endangerment finding, a health finding made by scientists and doctors that says carbon pollution is dangerous. It is even going to stop us from having a greenhouse registry where we know how much carbon pollution we're producing. This is a radical, radical amendment, and I trust we will defeat it, and I would yield to Senator Lautenberg without losing my right to the floor for a question.
President.
Senator from New Jersey.
I asked the Senator from California how she sees the amendment that we're discussing in terms of the lives of our countrymen as we see them. And I want to first mention what I see and see if the Senator agrees with me.
Absolutely.
The amendment that's been proposed by the Senator from Kentucky, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, is as dangerous an effort as we can imagine that would undermine our children's health while helping polluters and their lobbyists. And what a strange thing this is. And I hope the American public sees it for what it really is. It's an attack on the well-being of our children, our grandchildren, at the expense of promoting those companies, taking the rules off so those companies can run random, do any darn thing they want, put up any pollution that they feel like doing, not having to take care that effluent from their manufacturing process has to be properly packaged away, but just dump it and get rid of it. And usually those dumps, often those dump sites wind up as Superfund sites. But it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and do what you want. And I was watching television, as everybody here must be, looking at the calamity that struck Japan. And I saw one bright moment. They found a child who was under debris for something like 3 days. And they unearthed her. And she was so beautiful. And she brought tears to my eyes. And I'm a tough guy, it's believed. To see this beautiful thing alive and wanting to be protected and continuing her life. I never met a grandparent who wasn't ready to show you pictures of their latest grandchild. So there is no deeper love that can be found. And here we hear the message that's been going around. Let's get rid of the EPA's ability to regulate. Who are they to tell us what businesses can do? Thank goodness that in this democratic society that we live in has rules and regulations to keep us as a civilized nation. The Supreme Court, scientists at the Environmental Protection Agency agree that the Clean Air Act is a tool that we must use to stop dangerous pollution. And this amendment is very clear. It favors one group, business community, and I come from the business community. And I know what companies will do to help stretch their profits. Most companies do it reliably, honestly, and so forth. But there are others who say, who encourage this kind of thinking and say, get rid of this regulation, this bureaucratic stuff. And, you know, the Republican Tea Party politicians, and we see them, we see their thoughts reflected here, say just ignore the Supreme Court, ignore the scientists. We know better. They want to reward the polluters by crippling EPA's ability to enforce the Clean Air Act. Gutting this vital law is a clear and present danger. The Clean Air Act protects our children from toxic chemicals in the air and illnesses like asthma and lung cancer. Last year alone, the law prevented 1.7 million cases of childhood asthma, 1.7 million children, and more than 160,000 premature deaths, according to EPA. Those numbers are gigantic, but they loom much larger when it's your child, when it's your doctor that says, I hate to tell you this, Mr. or Mrs., but your child's sick. Your child has asthma. Your child may have lung cancer. And the largest cause of these conditions is pollution in the air. Numbers are big, and what we say here, because it doesn't seem to be entering the thought process. What goes around comes around, and it may be your child in danger, and heaven forbid, because there isn't a parent or a grandparent around who wouldn't give their own lives to protect the lives of their children or grandchildren. You really want to know the real value of the Clean Air Act to American families? Talk to the millions of parents who live in fear of their child's next asthma attack, and it's one my own family knows very well. A grandson of mine suffers from the disease, and he's an active athlete, and every time he goes to a soccer game or another game, my daughter first checks to see where the nearest emergency room is, because if he starts wheezing, she knows very well that she has to get him to a clinic. The experience in our family with asthma is a tragic one. My sister, who was in her early 50s, 52 years of age, was at a school board meeting when she felt an attack of asthma coming on, and she started out to run to her car where she carried a plug-in little respirator. She never made it. She collapsed in the parking lot, and she died within 3 days. And so when you see the effects of these things, you say, what could we do? What could we possibly do to prevent this from happening again to another family, to another relative? The Tea Party Republicans, they say to these families, clean air is nice, but listen, these companies, they got to make money. They got to pay dividends. They got to pay big salaries to the executives. For us, for them on that side, they say the most important thing are those profits, are those companies. And too bad, kids, sorry, we can't help you. The Tea Party Republicans say you can't restrict polluters with regulation. Too cumbersome. By their logic, we ought to get rid of traffic signals. Those red lights really slow down traffic. It's a darn nuisance. How's that sound for logic? That's what they're essentially saying. While we're at it, maybe we ought to get rid of the air traffic control system, too, because why should pilots of these big aircraft have to wait for some government bureaucrat to tell them where and when they can land or take off? Just another bureaucratic agency. As ridiculous as it sounds, Mr. President, that's how ridiculous this sounds and should sound to the American people, the people across this country. Stop it, Republicans. Stop threatening our children. Stop taking away a level of protection that they now have. And if the Tea Party Republicans have their way, we will get rid of these environmental regulations, because they interfere with some of these companies' right to pollute. Do we want to protect our children from playing outside in foul air by keeping them indoors on a permanent basis? Or wouldn't it be better if the air was clean, they could go outside and play and you don't have to worry about it? If you want to see where the Republicans will lead us, look at China. China has no Clean Air Act. The air there is so polluted that many people wear masks when they walk outside. And during the Olympics in Beijing, some U.S. athletes delayed their arrival to avoid the exposure to the polluted air. I was on a trip to China some years ago, and I went to visit the Minister of Environment, and he started complaining about how much the energy supply the United States uses and fouls the air. And so I was stunned because I had looked outside the window, and I invited him to join me from the 23rd floor and look down at the street. The only thing is, you couldn't see the street. It was so blocked with soot and mist, poisonous mist out there, I'll call it. You couldn't see the sidewalk. And that's how heavy the pollution in the air was. We don't need that. We want to make sure that we take care of our obligation to our families, to the children. And the strongest obligation anybody has in America is to the kids. The bottom line is that a day on the playground should not end in an emergency room. But for millions of children with asthma in America, that's exactly where the Tea Party Republicans want to take our country. As a corollary, I just met with a group concerned about diabetes, parents, each one of them, of a child with diabetes, and I have a grandchild who suffers from diabetes. And the forecast is that of children born in 2000, the year 2000, 1/3 of them will ultimately have diabetes. And it sends a chill through your body when you look at these kids and you think, well, one of the three of them is going to be a diabetic before their lives. And so I use that example to remind everybody, those who can see and hear what we're talking about, and those on the other side who want to sweep away all of the protections that we've had with clean air and let those who would pollute go on unencumbered. So I hope my colleagues will stand up and vote down this amendment. And I ask the senator from California, do you generally agree with what I've had to say here?
Well, I say to my friend, not only do I agree wholeheartedly, and let me show you a picture of a couple of kids. We have a couple of pictures. I would love my friend to look at this, these beautiful children, because they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's worth 1,000,000 words. This baby having to go to a mask to breathe the air because the air is so foul. And then we have another picture of another child. I say to my friend, I'm sure he's seen this. Look at this little one. I don't know. I'm a grandma. I'd say we're talking, to me, it looks like 3 years old, maybe even younger, knowing how to gasp for air. Okay? And here's another one. This beautiful child. And the answer I give to my friend, and thanking him for his passion, this is what he's dealt with one of his grandkids. The fear, the blood-curdling fear, as my friend has said over and over, that when he's out and playing a sport, he might have to rush to an emergency room, and my friend's daughter having to know in advance where the nearest emergency room is. I say to the American people, this is an attack on our children. This amendment is an attack on our children. And let me prove it to you. I will prove it to you. We have the leading health experts have just sent us a letter telling us it's an attack on our children. And I would put any senator up against these groups for an argument, for a debate. When I hear from the American Lung Association, when I hear from the American Public Health Association, when I hear from the American Thoracic Society, when I hear from the Asthma and Allergy Foundation, when I hear from physicians across this country, Trust for America's Health, and they say, beat this McConnell amendment, it's dangerous, I listen. And so should every American. I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, but let me tell you, the senator from Alaska was railing against the Environmental Protection Agency. Let's see what the American people think of the Environmental Protection Agency. There was just a bipartisan poll done by a Republican pollster and a Democratic pollster. 69% of Americans think EPA should update the Clean Air Act standards with stricter air pollution limits. The McConnell Amendment says to EPA, you may not do this. You may not update air pollution standards as it relates to carbon pollution. 68%. Now listen, we're a country that's polarized about a lot of things. I appreciate that. You know, I often say I just came out of an election that was tough. But 68% of the people believe Congress should not stop EPA from enforcing Clean Air Act standards. Let me repeat. 68% of the American people. This poll was just done in February 16th. This is very recent. 68% believe Congress should not stop EPA from enforcing Clean Air Act standards. And guess what the McConnell Amendment does? It stops the EPA from enforcing Clean Air Act standards. 69% believe that EPA scientists, not Congress, should set pollution standards. And what does this amendment do? It says that Mitch McConnell and Jim Inhofe, my buddy, my pal, we are friends, but on this one, we're on opposite sides. Opposite sides. I stand with the American people on this one. 69% says EPA scientists, not Congress, should set pollution standards. Why do you think that would be, Madam President? 69%. This means people polled in Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, California, New Hampshire. Doesn't matter. This is a huge number. Why do you think they think that? Common sense. You trust doctors and scientists to tell you what's good for you, not politicians. Period. And we have members of Congress who are doctors. But I have to say to you, some of them come out against the science and the doctors because they've given that up. They're politicians now. So here's the deal. We have an amendment by Mitch McConnell. It's actually taken straight from the Upton bill in the House and the Inhofe bill in the Senate that stops EPA in its tracks from updating Clean Air Act standards so that we have a standard for carbon pollution, which is dangerous. Who tells us it's dangerous? The doctors. Who tells us it's dangerous? The scientists. Who made an endangerment finding? The Environmental Protection Agency. Let me tell you something about the Environmental Protection Agency that people forget. Do you know, I ask rhetorically, Madam President, who actually came up with the idea of an Environmental Protection Agency in the 70s? Richard Nixon. Everyone knows Richard Nixon was a Republican. And by the way, I have the same Senate seat that he once held. In this, we are in agreement. The EPA was a brilliant idea. Why? Because guess what? If you can't breathe, you can't work. And I say to my friends today, you may think you're doing something good for the economy by telling the EPA to go into their rooms and forget about their jobs. When people start getting more asthma, when there's premature death, you'll think about it again. Let me show you what happened in Los Angeles since the Clean Air Act was passed. This is an amazing graph. I hope people can see this clearly. In the 70s, when Richard Nixon and the Congress voted the Clean Air Act in, and it was voted in with a huge, huge majority. I don't even have it in front of me, but it was overwhelming. In Los Angeles, follow this, 166 days were lost where people were told they had to stay in. Sensitive people. Now, I remember those years. You used to go on the radio to make sure it was safe to go out if you had a kid with asthma or you had a mom who had a breathing problem. More than half the year, in those years, you couldn't go out of your house. Think about what that says about the economy when people are trapped inside their houses. Think about what it means to their freedom of movement. And think about what it means to the economy when so many people have to stay home and not go to work, not go to school. Now, over the years, as the EPA started to do its job, the Environmental Protection Agency, we started to see fewer and fewer lost days where people could actually go out. And I am proud to tell you, Madam President, in 2010 in Los Angeles, which was once the smog capital of this nation, not one day was there an advisory. Not one day. Not one day. What more of a success rate can you have? Now, you want to see more success? We'll show you more success. We'll show you some of the benefits in another way. The Congress said to the EPA, we want to make sure there are benefits that go along with your enforcement of the Clean Air Act, so that when you go to a company that's belching smoke and you say, you've got to install some cleanup devices, that it really is working. Okay? What did we find out? In 2010, the Clean Air Act prevented 160,000 cases of premature deaths. Now you understand why the heart doctors and the lung doctors and the physicians and the public health doctors are telling you, don't vote for McConnell. It will turn the clock back. We saved 160,000 lives in 2010 alone. And projected out, it's going to go way higher of premature deaths averted if we move forward with the Clean Air Act and we don't substitute politicians for doctors and scientists. So clearly, we're on the right track. What else? I told you in the future we'd prevent even more deaths, 230,000 to be exact, by 2020. And I say to my friends, I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, a liberal, conservative, and in between, an independent, whatever you are, this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with our families. This has to do with our health. That's why we see 69% of the people saying, Congress, butt out of this. Let the EPA do its work. And that's why a defeat of the McConnell Amendment means that we are standing with the doctors, we are standing with the scientists, and more than anything else, we're standing with the kids. We're standing with these beautiful kids. These kids who at age 3 are having to learn how to bring in oxygen because they can't go outside, because the air is dirty. Whose side are we on? Are we on the side of this baby and his family, or are we on the side of the biggest polluters in the country who are making billions of dollars, they're doing fine, and all they have to do is do a little bit more to clean up the air? By the way, we had lots of arguments over the years, and every time we had Clean Air Act amendments, people argued, don't do it. The air's clean enough. Stop. Enough. Business can't do it. Guess what we found out? Not only did business step up to the plate and do it, but what was created was an incredible export business, exports of clean air products, technologies, machinery, the best available technology, made in America. So we are talking about taking the lead on clean air and keeping it, not retreating. And we remember when the Berlin Wall came down, everyone said, hooray, but then they could see the air suddenly on the other side. And Germany did the right thing, and they said, well, we're going to clean up the air here in Eastern Europe, because without clean air, you can't have growth. I'm very happy to see my friend on the floor from Washington State. I'm going to yield to her for a question, but I want her to know, Senator Cantwell, how much I rely on her leadership on this. Maria Cantwell has been a leader from the very beginning on clean air, clean water, safe drinking water, cleaning up Superfund sites. And she never, never flinches. And the last thing I would say before I yield to her for a question is I started off my debate by telling you what my friends on the other side call their amendment. They call it the Energy Tax Prevention Act. And I've already told you why it really should be called the More Air Pollution for Every American Act. Or if you don't like that, it could be called Rely on Foreign Oil Forever Act. That's what it really is, because it stops us from cleaning up our air, which the people definitely do not support. 69% of the people in a bipartisan poll. And let me tell you this, and I would ask unanimous consent to place this in the record.
Without objection.
This is the Truth-O-Meter from PolitiFact, and that's an independent website that judges the truth of these claims. And they looked at this amendment, and guess what they said? The claim is false that gasoline price would go down. They're false. So beware of things that are called good names, but when you get behind them, you see they're not good. They're dangerous. This is a red flag coming from me to everybody watching this debate. This bill would tell the EPA they can no longer do their job. EPA, one of the most popular agencies in the nation, 69% of the people saying do their job. And it would, in essence, stop us from making more fuel-efficient cars because it would just say states can't do more. And that would mean reliance on foreign oil. I'm happy to yield to my friend for a question, my friend from Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. And
Madam President.
Can I just inquire something?
The senator from Louisiana.
How long do you think the senator from Washington will proceed, and how long Senator Boxer? Because, right.
And I plan to proceed as long as colleagues come and want to ask questions. And then I could go till about 5.
Okay, because Senator Snow has an amendment that she just
We already allowed her to
speak on it.
I will continue yielding without losing the right to the floor because there'll be a question.
All right. And do you think Senator Snow could go after Senator Cantwell?
I don't at this point. We're taking our time. I want to say through the chair to my friend, this amendment is so radical, it's far beyond any other amendment we've ever had on this subject. So I'm not going to yield the floor until I've gotten people a chance on my side to ask questions about it, and I intend to hold the floor. At this point, I can't give you a time that I will stop. I'm also very willing to have a vote on this at a time that we can mutually agree to. But at this point, I won't be able to yield the floor.
Okay, well, let me see what we can do. Thank you.
Okay? I yield to my friend for a question, or a series of questions, as many as she might have.
thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleague from California and the chair of the committee for working so hard on this important amendment to try to articulate and help colleagues understand what is really at the basis of it. So I, too, was surprised to learn that the McConnell-Inhofe amendment would overturn what has really been hard-won gains in fuel efficiency over several years. And I don't really understand, because the EPA's clean air standards through 2016 will save so much gasoline that car buyers will actually save $3,000 over the life of the car. That's because of the hard work that we have done here in the Senate on a bipartisan basis. I know our colleague from both sides of the aisle worked to get that last agreement that we did in 2008. And while we're doing this, we'll save 1.8 billion barrels of oil. So I was surprised to hear that this legislation, the McConnell-Inhofe amendment, would overturn all of that progress that we've made in the last couple of decades on cleaner air and more opportunities for fuel efficiency. And when I look at this, I look at our domestic automakers in Detroit who are making much more progress based on this new generation of technology. So they're actually, because we've said you have to have more fuel-efficient cars, you actually are now winning in the marketplace with consumers because of those offerings. And I know that the Department of Energy, for the first time, has said that we have reduced our dependence on foreign oil because of these fuel economy improvements. So I say to my colleague in California, it wasn't because drill, baby, drill that we got fuel efficiency and got off foreign oil. It was because we had fuel efficiency in automobiles that we were able to reduce our dependence. So I asked my friend from California why we'd want to go backwards on that if we've made progress in better cars out of Detroit, if they've become cheaper for consumers over the life of the car, if we have made advancements in reducing our dependence on fossil fuel. Why would we want Americans to pay more at the pump and have cars that don't go as far per gallon of gas as they do today? So I don't understand what kind of scheme this is, but why would we want to go back on that level of fuel efficiency and override that by this amendment? So does my colleague